Sean Diddy Combs threatened to murder a college student? That's the latest allegations in one of the latest lawsuits filed against the disgraced music mogul. The lawsuits, they just keep on coming for the embattled rapper as he sits in jail awaiting his trial for alleged federal sex crimes. We are going to dig into these disturbing new details right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is a Law&Crime legal alert. So recent studies have uncovered a link between Depo-Provera, aka the Depo shot, and an increased risk of brain tumors. Yes, lawsuits are being filed against Pfizer, the manufacturer of Depo-Provera, alleging that they failed to warn patients and doctors about this risk, and instead they rushed the drug to market while downplaying the adverse event reports. So if you've been diagnosed with a brain tumor, maybe you're experiencing symptoms like headaches, vision problems, seizures, other neurological issues, you may qualify for compensation. And Wright & Schulte, one of our legal sponsors, is a national firm helping those injured to ensure their claims are thoroughly presented. Just visit deposhotclaims.com/sidebar to answer less than 10 questions and check your eligibility to file a claim. We have been trying to track every new filing against Sean Diddy Combs since he was arrested last month for what the Justice Department calls a years-long scheme to sexually abuse and exploit women. We know on the criminal front, he's currently locked up in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York. He was charged pursuant to a grand jury indictment with federal crimes like racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, transportation to engage in prostitution. And prosecutors say Combs used his money, his power, his influence, his businesses to operate a criminal enterprise. More specifically, to organize what are called freak-offs, these orgies that involved hiring male sex workers, procuring drugs, filming the sex acts, that he used threats and violence and force and fraud and coercion to get what he wanted. Now, we have seen numerous lawsuits filed since this indictment where the claimants allege very similar patterns of abuse, that they would meet Combs at an event or an after party or some other party, and that they were coerced or drugged in some manner, and they were forced essentially into performing sex acts, sometimes while others were watching, even videotaping these events. And as we've talked about before, you can look at this two ways. On one hand, you can make the argument, oh, everybody's coming out now for a money grab. Everybody's suing Sean Combs, especially after his indictment, because he's an easy target. The other way to look at it is, it had to take other people to sue him. It had to take for Sean Combs to be arrested, to be charged, to be locked up, for these accusers to finally feel safe to come out against him. We'll see where these suits shake up and what these allegations are, but we got to talk about this lawsuit. So it was filed last week by Texas-based attorney Tony Busby, who we've talked about before. He is an attorney who has vowed to bring forth hundreds of lawsuits against Sean Combs, that he would name names of people involved in these episodes of abuse, that he would go basically launch a legal war against Sean Combs and any businesses or entities or people that were involved in this. Now, in this specific lawsuit, there are allegations that Combs threatened to kill a teenager and her friend before sexually assaulting them. Let me lay it out. The claimant, who is filing as a Jane Doe, is suing the 54-year-old rapper for damages relating to what she says was an alleged 2004 incident when she was a 19-year-old college student in New York City. The Jane Doe says that she attended a photo shoot promoting Da Band. This was a singing group that was signed to Combs' label Bad Boy Records at the time. The event was taking place across the street from her college in Brooklyn, New York. She says she attended this event with a friend from college, that the two of them were invited to an after party, and before they could leave to go to the party, they encountered Sean Diddy Combs. The suit reads, quote, Combs told Miss Doe and her friend that they should come to his hotel for a more exclusive party. Miss Doe and her friend agreed and were taken to a Manhattan area Marriott hotel by a member of Combs' entourage. So she claims they get to the hotel, and supposedly there were about a dozen people drinking in this hotel suite. But then things take a very violent turn. She says she and her friend were grabbed by a security guard and taken to a separate room. She even claims that when she asked the guard where he was taking her, he said, quote, you know what you're here for. When they get to this separate room, which was apparently a bedroom, she says the security guard locked her and her friend inside, and there was only one other person in this room, Sean Combs. And that is where things get more troubling. The suit reads, Combs gave Miss Doe and her friends more drinks and then instructed them to imbibe cocaine that he prepared for use on the coffee table. Combs continued getting gradually more aggressive with the two women and eventually began to forcibly touch them without consent. The suit goes on to say that when these two women tried to resist these advances, Combs allegedly told them to engage in sexual activity with him or else. Quote, Combs ordered Miss Doe's friend to perform oral sex on him or else he would have them both killed. Miss Doe's friend complied as Miss Doe begged him to allow them to leave. He did not agree. He then allegedly ordered the Jane Doe to undress, quote, under the threat of violence and began to sexually assault her. She was allegedly crying and begging for him to stop. So she's claiming that she's essentially being held hostage inside of this room during this terrifying ordeal as things just completely spiral out of control, but eventually there's a disruption. Quote, likely due to Miss Doe's cries, the door opened and the security guard from earlier came in to ask if everything was all right. Miss Doe's friend took the opportunity to rush out of the recently locked door. Miss Doe, however, could not move as he was still on top of her. Now, Combs allegedly eventually leaves the room to talk to the security guard, but he issues a warning to the young woman. Quote, he left the room but told Miss Doe to stay, otherwise she would be killed. So now we have two alleged death threats in this case. So how did this all shake out? Well, the lawsuit claims that this woman was only able to escape this situation when about a half hour later, a guard opens the door and told her she could leave. Now legally, this unnamed plaintiff is claiming that Combs' alleged actions violate the New York City Victims of Gender-Motivated Violence Protection Act, arguing, quote, the requirement that the crime of violence be committed because of gender or on the basis of gender and due at least in part to an animus based on the victim's gender is satisfied because defendant Combs forced plaintiff to engage in sexual interaction without consent. We've talked about this statute before. This is a common law that Combs' accusers, including those who are represented by Tony Busby, they are filing their claims under. And it allows a victim of gender-motivated violence a look-back window to file a lawsuit, even if their claims would otherwise be too old. If otherwise, they would be time-barred. They would be time-barred by the statute of limitations, not under this. Because now you would have until February 2025 to file these kinds of lawsuits. It's one of the reasons that you're seeing so many of these lawsuits before that window closes. And by the way, when it comes to gender-motivated violence, that doesn't just have to be sexual assault. It can be any kind of violence that's motivated by gender. Now, Jane Doe is asking to be awarded compensatory damages for physical injuries, emotional distress, as well as for psychological harm, anxiety, humiliation, physical and emotional pain and suffering that would happen during a trial. And compensatory damages are a way to restore Jane Doe to the position that she would be in before this attack. She's also requested the court award her punitive damages, or a way to punish the defendant for really egregious conduct, and also attorney's fees and costs. This lawsuit is one of many that Sean Combs is facing right now. And even despite the allegations in these lawsuits, despite the criminal allegations that he's facing, he has always maintained his innocence. And in that vein, a representative for Sean Combs released this statement. Mr. Combs and his legal team have full confidence in the facts, their legal defenses, and the integrity of the judicial process. In court, the truth will prevail, that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted anyone, adult or minor, man or woman. And specific to this lawsuit, and maybe the Tony Busby lawsuits in general, a representative for Sean Combs issued a statement to Us Weekly. And these are the thoughts on Tony Busby. The statement reads, quote, the lawyer behind this lawsuit is interested in media attention rather than the truth, as is obvious from his constant press appearances and 1-800 number. As we've said before, Mr. Combs cannot respond to every new publicity stunt, even in response to claims that are facially ridiculous or demonstratively false. And by the way, this latest lawsuit follows 5 other lawsuits from all anonymous accusers that were filed days before this one, all by Tony Busby's law firm, and they have accused Sean Combs of sexual assault. Those egregious allegations include claims from an Alabama woman who says that Combs drugged and raped her when she was just 13 years old, So these mounting legal troubles for the music mogul, they have certainly made headlines since the accusations in November of last year, when this all started from his ex-girlfriend Cassandra Ventura, who accused him of sexually assaulting her during their on-again, off-again relationship. Diddy denied the claims. He settled out of court that same month. And when Diddy was arrested in September, the 14-page indictment was unsealed, where it was alleged that Combs was abusing, threatening, coercing women to fulfill his sexual desires, to protect his reputation, to conceal his conduct. So he's pleaded not guilty to the charges. He was denied bail multiple times, and it looks like, as of right now, he is going to be locked up pending his trial, which is scheduled to begin in May of 2025. That's all we have for you right here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us once again as we cover the Sean Combs legal saga. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.